Welcome to Recalculating Small Business. Like its award-winning book, Recalculating is dedicated to small business in America. Your hosts are Don Mazzella and Dan Perkins. Don Mazzella is the editor-in-chief of the Small Business Digest. Dan Perkins is a registered investment advisor with 43 years' experience in managing money.
Dan Perkins here, your co-host, along with Don Mazzella of Recalculating for Small Business. Our radio program is dedicated to you, helping the small business owners increase their profits. We draw our name from Recalculating, voted the best small business book of 2017 by the Independent Press. In this book, it features ways to grow your small business. Now, here's Don Mazzella.
My co-host, Dan Perkins, is on assignment, but here today is Robert Logemann. He's CEO of Tyden Group, a leading manufacturer of track and trace systems, who built his career on business processes and management. So I might add successful ones, both career and business processes. Robert, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm going to ask a question first. What is the track and trace systems?
So the Tyden Group is a holding company, and we have really two distinct businesses. One, we're a global supplier of consumable track and trace solutions, and that's primarily a variety of security seals. And then we have a second business called Telesis, and they make, it's really a technology company that has permanent track and trace solutions using either dot peen or laser equipment to physically mark products.
Wow. But before we go further, tell us a little bit about your career personally, and then your company and your website.
Yeah, sure. So, I started my career many years ago back at Otis Elevator and had a number of different roles. From there, I went to Stanley Black & Decker, where I ran manufacturing for, at that time, roughly a third of the business. Had plants in the U.S., Europe, Asia, Latin America. And then had an opportunity to go to a company called Sunrise Medical that made medical device products for the home healthcare industry. And we were a public company at the time and partnered with a private equity firm out of New York and took that business private. And that was an exciting and interesting time to learn. And since then, I've been fortunate to be CEO of three separate companies, a combination of consumer products as well as industrial products, and back in the industrial space, leading the Tyden Group here in Atlanta, Georgia. Well,
that's a great place to be. I went to Georgia Tech, so I always loved Atlanta. But now. You're here to talk some of the ideas you've learned and how small business can apply them. And with that is the introduction. The stage is yours.
Yeah, I think what I understand, your listeners might be most interested in is, how do you help and change or take a business that maybe isn't performing as well as one would hope, and turn it into a higher performing business. And I think the key, and I've written about this a little bit, is it's great communications. Making sure that you're communicating with all levels of the organization, particularly if you're a new leader coming in, it's important to establish trust with the organization, because oftentimes, organizations, particularly if they've been struggling, a new leader comes in, there is distrust because of what they've been experiencing. And so if you can build that trust and through communication, start to take your strategy and the strategy that you work with the team on building and deploying and executing that. You can create a great environment for everybody. People can start having fun again and ultimately be successful, because most people deep down want to be successful at what they want to do or are doing. And it's not there's no secret sauce or magic wand required. It's just hard work and lots of communication. And in today's world in particular, where you're dealing with Generation X and Generation Z and Generation Y, people all who have slightly different needs, you need to make sure that you adapt your communication styles and approaches to your audience. And we've been very successful, or I've been very successful at that over the course of my career, and truly enjoy coming into new environments and helping organizations realize their potential.
Well, let's delve a little deeper into that. I've been involved in a couple of organizations which were in the process of change. The industry was changing under them, and employees were skeptical whenever new leadership was brought in. What are some of the tools you think can be used to more effectively communicate leadership's direction?
Well, I think the key is, at least for me, has always been to get the management team together and take a day or two, and I always use an outside facilitator to help, because if you try and do it yourself, then it becomes your meeting versus you being a participant in the meeting, and have the data in front of you, and data is always key, to say, what's happening in the industry, where are we positioned, what are the changes that are occurring, what are the pricing models, and what do we see from the competition, and start to lay out a strategy. And over the course of a couple of days, grind through, and it is a grind, the things that you need to do to define what your strategy is, and then once you have that, start to talk about what are the key benchmarks that you need to have and objectives that need to be accomplished to achieve that strategy. And if you do that through consensus, and the one thing I like to always say is I'm a huge believer in consensus. And consensus, the definition I use is the group is, if you're part of the group, every individual in the group is willing and committed to the decision that the group has arrived at, even if they may not be in agreement. But they are willing to support the decision and work hard to achieve that result. And so by getting consensus with the team, you now have what I like to refer to as buy-in and commitment from the team to achieving the results that we've just talked about over the last couple of days. And then once that's done, you start and take that same process and roll it down throughout the organization, which generates further buy-in and commitment, and most importantly, alignment within the organization. Because all too often, you can have organizations that end up, particularly that are struggling, that get siloed. They can have different objectives that, what finance is trying to do may not line up with what sales is trying to do, which may not line up with engineering. And by coming up with a strategy at the top and then deploying that down, you get everybody in alignment, and it's a very powerful tool, because then there aren't competing interests within the organization. And the one thing that you do have to absolutely ensure that when you're doing this is, my experience has been there's always that one person who will be what I like to refer to as passive aggressive. They'll say
Yes.
they're committed. They'll say they're committed. They'll want to sound like they're part of the team, but as soon as they get off or get out of the room, they go do their own thing. And those people, you just need to identify them quickly, and just help them find a job somewhere where that's outside of the company, where they can be successful, because they will be a cancer within the organization and prevent you from getting to where you need to be.
Well, that was going to be my first question, because I've been involved in several, and I've seen that one passive aggressive person, or in some cases two, have really wrecked the company. Before we go further, Robert, do you have a website and do you have a book where people can learn more about this?
Unfortunately, no. I'm just a doer. So
welcome. You're one of the few on this program that doesn't have a book, so that's so people will have to listen more closely. We're talking with Robert Logemann. He's CEO of Tyden Group, but and I have a lot of questions for him, because it sounds as if he's done it before and he's seen it all. But I was going to before we get off the topic of the passive aggressive, your answer again is to help them find another job. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with my experience has been passive aggressive personalities and members of the organization. And I've been doing this for 30 years now. And I have yet to see where you can take someone who's passive aggressive and have them look at the world in a different way. So trying to convince that person that it's that they need to be part of the team, you're going to spend a lot of time and energy, and that time and energy is better spent moving the organization forward. And how valuable you think that person is, we all can be replaced, as harsh as that may sound. No one person makes or breaks an organization, and if you truly care about everybody else in the company and the organization, you need to do what's right for the organization. And I said it doesn't have to be a negative. It's just help them find a role where they're able to be successful. But it's not part of your team.
I'm sorry, I spoke over your line. Please finish.
No, I said it doesn't need to be part of your team. So you just need to find them that next job. And fortunately today we're in a great labor market and there are lots of jobs, so you can help people that way.
But how do you identify a passive aggressive?
It's actually not too hard. It's usually through actions. When you have the KPIs and you have the metrics, and it's also through it's clear are things being achieved. When you talk to people in the organization, what is the message that you're hearing? And so I've had in other roles where I'll have had somebody that's on my team say that they're going to do X, and when I am out visiting their location and talking with members of their management team, and the stories are the message hasn't gotten through, and people really are not aligned, then you have a problem, and then you just need to continue to ask more questions, and it becomes pretty evident. It's relatively self-evident, I have found.
This is like music to my ears based on my career, which is unfortunately more than 30 years of yours. And I've seen this in big organizations and small. and in situations where things are not going right, you can usually point to now. I wish I'd learned this many years ago. The clog points. But please, let's go on, because for me this is fascinating. 59% of our audience are presidents and/or owners. So what you're saying, I think, is very important. But what are some of the additional ways? Do you believe that the senior management should be talking directly to the troops below, or should the message be through interim managers?
No, I think it's important for leaders to, build trust with their managers, such that you should always, as a leader, be free to reach down as far as you would like in the organization to talk to people. Now, that's different than giving direction to people. But I think it's a healthy thing when you're talking. I've led organizations where I've had 4,500 people work for me, and I felt it was inappropriate for me to talk to any one of those 4,500 people at any given time. What you don't want to do as a leader, regardless of the size of the organization, is circumvent the chain of command or the organizational structure that you have, and start telling people what to do, because now you're starting to undermine, your managers that work for you. So, while I'm happy to listen to people and talk with people, and I always, when someone complains about something, I'll sit there and say, first question is, well, have you talked to your manager about that? And generally the answer is, well, no. And then the next question is, why not? And then I would encourage them to speak with their manager. And if they feel frustrated and they feel that no one else is listening, then of course I always have an open door policy and allow people to approach me from anywhere in the organization, but it's only to listen, and then I gather the facts, and then I find out, do we have a problem because something's broken down in the organization. But you need to respect the structure that you put in place.
Well, on that note, over the last few years, many large companies have flattened layers of management, sometimes going from 6 down to 2 or 3. Do you think that's a good thing, that there are less managers and more doers?
Yes, absolutely. And I would actually say that when you look at the Generation Z and Generation Y people that are now entering the workforce, those folks are, they expect to have a voice and they expect to have input. And I've seen where, other managers that are, my vintage, I'm 55 years old, struggle when, they have some 25-year-old individual trying to tell them they're wrong or this is, what should be done, because, they feel like, hey, I have 30 years experience. I don't need to listen to this young kid. Well, the reality is, in today's world, those young kids expect to have a voice, and so a flatter organization helps give them that voice. But with that voice comes accountability and responsibility. And so you just need to, when people speak up and have a point of view, that's great. But then make them accountable for following through on what's agreed to.
I couldn't agree with you more. In the time we have left, what are some of the things that you would impart to small business leaders? You imparted a lot, but 2 or 3 things that you always emphasize?
I sit there and say, engage your workforce, listen to what they have to say. That doesn't mean what they have to say is correct, but you need to listen, and then if there is a disconnect between what you're trying to do and what you're hearing, you need to figure out a way to explain what it is. I encourage all leaders to have regular meetings with their teams. One of the things that I've done for years and years is we have town hall meetings and use technology so that there can be people around the world that participate in those meetings and can hear the message, and just be open and communicate with your teams about where the organization is relative to where you want it to be, and what you need to and you're looking for from the team to be able to do differently to accomplish the goals that you've set out for yourself. Be accessible.
Well, let's turn it around and let's talk about the leaders. We've been talking, but just recently I had a very autocratic leader, a fairly famous entrepreneur on the program, and his view was that his leadership, he had the ideas and he was looking for the people to implement them. If I'm hearing you correctly, you view it as a more collaborative type of environment. Am I hearing that correctly?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think we as leaders need to have a strong sense of where we're taking the organization. But if someone thinks that they have it all figured out and doesn't need input from anybody, then they're smarter than anybody else on the planet. And I'm sure there are people that believe that, but I would argue that they're not, and that if they listen to their people, that as good a plan as they have, they'll come up with something better and more innovative. So I do believe you have to have a vision. That is part of the role of the leader, but you need to be willing to modify that vision as new data presents itself, and you get that data through the team members, and so there is some collaboration, absolutely, but it's not a completely collaborative process because that wouldn't be particularly efficient.
I don't want to get into politics, but President Trump seems to have a management style which is push ahead, and then when his people say you've got to modify, he seems to modify. Is that and it seems to that type of management seems to resonate with a lot of people in our recent surveys. But you feel this, I guess, how would you rate that type of service, that type of a leadership? Would you want more collaborative or more vision leading?
Well, I think you have to have a vision. I mean, Elon Musk has a vision of where he's taking his organization. But I think he will, despite some of the things that I read, he does listen from time to time, and I think I think there's a difference between the way I like to describe it is I'm an 80% guy. Let's get it 80% right, and then let's move forward, and then we'll figure out the other 20% as we go along the way. I'm not sure I would describe that as our president's approach, because I'm not sure he's necessarily done as much homework as we try to do in coming up with the decisions. And that's where, again, the input from the team is, because then the team is helping you course correct while you're moving forward. So collaboration is important, but being decisive as a leader is also important, and a willingness to take risks. But the key is you need to work collectively and collaboratively with people. You can't just bully them into doing things, because then they're doing it out of fear versus out of commitment to doing it. And you get a lot more from individuals when they're committed to doing something versus doing and reacting out of fear.
Well, what I've always found interesting is that if you look at his organization, he has more long-time people that have worked with him a long time than one would expect from such an autocratic, quote, autocratic boss. It's an interesting point. I don't want to get into politics, but I find his style interesting only because he seems to get things done more so than one would know from the news reports. But let's get off that subject. Except to say, we have just a couple of minutes left. And I know you said it, but this has been, to me, a fascinating time. Can you sum up your suggestions for a small business leader in a couple of minutes?
Yeah, I would encourage any small business leader, develop a plan. I'm sure most small business leaders, they have plans. Make sure you get your team involved, and they're equally as committed to the plan that you've put together. Make sure there's clear ownership for the different aspects of the plan. Who's responsible for what and when they're going to get it done. And then make sure, depending on, if it's an organization or a business with 3 people, then you're doing it with 3 people. If it's one with 30, you're probably doing it with 5 or 10, and then get those other 20 people in the organization also involved, so that they know what you're trying to do and what's important and who owns what and when it needs to be accomplished by, and what their role is in achieving those things.
Robert Logemann, if the people wanted to get in touch with you, how did they do it?
I have a website, robertlogemann.com, and I guess that would probably be the easiest way to connect with me.
Can you spell it out for our radio audience?
Sure. It's RobertLogemann.com, and
it's been a fascinating time. I could spend another half hour with you, but unfortunately we've come to the end of the time. Robert Logemann, thank you so much for being with you. A link to your website will be on recalculating.biz tonight, where you can hear this and every other recalculating program, past and future. And also, by the way, tell us if you have somebody you'd like to hear on the program. Robert, thank you so much.
Thank you, and happy to do it. And if you ever want to do it again, let me know. Take care.
Well, I'm definitely going to invite you back, because you've raised so many good advice. We want you back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book.
Marcus Lemonis, J.D. Powers, and John Scully, and 100 other presidents and experts contributed to Recalculating the book. Why did all these people agree to contribute to the book? I'm Don Mazzella, and I'm the editorial director of Small Business Digest. And for 20 years, we have been offering small business leaders information and data to increase profits. Recalculating the book was named the best small business book by the Independent Press Association. Whether you need help with marketing, staffing, finance, operations, technology, or many other subjects, they're all here in Recalculating the book. They're now available at Amazon at a reduced cost. We've also created the radio program Recalculating on Recalculating.biz.
Welcome back to Recalculating, the program dedicated to American small business, designed to help you be successful.
My co-host, Dan Perkins, is on assignment, but we have with us Mike Savage. He's CEO of 1-800 Accountant. He's a small business expert, one of the people I've most admired over the last couple of years, and he's here to share some tips on how small businesses can avoid, amongst other things, sexual harassment. So, Mike, welcome to the program.
Well, it's nice to be here.
Well, Mike, before we go any further, tell us a little bit about your background, about your company, and your website.
Sure. Well, I'm the CEO of 1-800-ACCOUNTANT, and our website is 1-800-ACCOUNTANT.com. We are a virtual accounting firm specializing primarily in small businesses and small business owners. We are a full-service accounting firm. We do tax work, tax consulting, tax preparation, bookkeeping, payroll. We also do other forms of consulting and everything essentially related to accounting for small businesses.
Well, that's exciting. Can you spell out your website? Is it 1 with a dash or is it 1-800? How do you spell out your website?
It's just 1-800-ACCOUNTANT.com.
Okay, it's great. Now, Mike, you've been in this industry a long time, and this is a program eliciting information. So let's start. Where would you like to start, and some of the things that you've learned in recent times that you'd like to pass on to our small business audience?
Well, I would say, first of all, I forgot to mention that we have about 200,000 clients nationwide. We're represented in all 50 states. I would say, some of the things that I have learned, from running a business, but also more importantly from observing the thousands of business owners that we service, that oftentimes people will have a great idea, and I think the biggest mistake is not following through with the idea. I think the biggest mistake that small business owners make is not pursuing their passion and starting their business and really, truly fulfilling their creative and entrepreneurial inner selves. I would say along those lines for small businesses,
once you do get your business started, I think there are some major minefields to avoid. Some of those are trying to do everything yourself. I think it's very important to delegate to competent professionals to do some of the administrative work. I think that the entrepreneur, the small business owner, should try and focus most of their bandwidth on their passion and on their business idea, allowing other professionals, whether it be lawyers or accountants, to handle the administrative task as much as possible. Oftentimes, business owners will think that they could do a little bit more than they should be doing. And I think it's important to be organized, and understand that as a new business owner, you're essentially a new entity, and so you have, in many cases, more than doubled your tax obligations. A lot of new business owners don't fully understand that or comprehend that they're essentially they have potentially new deadlines that they have to pay attention to. They have new forms of tax, whether it's sales tax, estimated taxes. But there is, oftentimes you hear that taxes and or regulations are the biggest hindrance from a small or a micro business becoming a small to medium-sized business. I think it's very important to have a budget. Avoid debt. By all means, do not get into debt and don't be beholden to other people, and make long-term decisions. Don't try and grow too quickly. Don't make decisions based on shortcuts, and always have the customer's satisfaction first and foremost, and never stop with your vision. Your vision. You had the vision to start a business. It doesn't stop there. It just starts. And so constantly looking 2, 3, 5 years down the road to reinvent yourself, to reinvent your business, to anticipate potential issues and seize potential opportunities.
Well, on that level, a lot of new businesses are internet-based, and with the new laws about internet taxes, et cetera, what are you telling your clients about collecting taxes, et cetera? That seems to be one of the issues our surveys have recently surfaced as something that small businesses are worried about.
Yes, there has been new clarification on the sales tax for internet sales. For several of the on a state level. So many people who do have internet businesses are not just providing services for the state in which they're domiciled or located in. And so it's very important to realize that your situation potentially has gotten much more complicated. And much like the new tax law in general, a lot has yet to be seen. There's a lot of wait and see. And my advice is not to wait and see, but to get the advice from a competent accountant to help you navigate through a lot of which is unknown.
We're talking with Mike Savage. He's CEO and founder of 1-800-Accounting. Mike, our show is based on the fact that 59% of its audience are presidents and/or owners, and in many cases they talk about the need for providing for their future retirement. I know that's something new entrepreneurs don't even think about, but I heard recently from another accountant, actually mine, that when you start a company, you should be thinking about the exit strategy. What do you tell your people?
Well, I think before you think of the exit strategy, you have to think of the current strategy. And a lot of times when individuals leave the comforts and the confines of an employer-employee relationship, meaning they're the employee, now they are the employer, there are some safeguards that are no longer in place, like 401ks, that are common in larger companies that provide it to the employee, and also something as simple as withholding taxes. Now that your employer is not withholding your taxes, it's on you to make your own tax payments and essentially withhold your own taxes and pay throughout the year by way of estimated taxes. But to your question about retirement and exit strategy and the future, there are a lot of opportunities and products out there that are designed to benefit the small business owner. I mean, after all, entrepreneurial spirit is a staple in American culture, and the government has provided tax beneficial ways to save for your retirement. And being a business owner, there are many vehicles out there that one should take advantage of or at least be aware of.
I'm looking at the exit strategy right now. I've been in business a long time. But let's go back to the entrepreneur who's just starting out. There used to be a rule that if you survive 5 years, you know your company is there to stay. What do you say to someone who's in the second and third year of his or her company? What are some of the things you ask them have they done, and what do you suggest they should do?
I think it's very important to be patient. I think it's very important to, again, avoid debt and keep the doors open. If you keep the doors open and at the same time avoiding debt, then you're putting yourself in a position to succeed, not only by hard work and perseverance, but also by luck. You know, the old saying goes, it's better to be lucky than good. Well, if your doors are closed, you can't get that phone call. That potential client can't walk in the door. So I think it's very important to stick to it. And if you made it 2 or 3 years, and again, you're avoiding debt, then primary focus is to keep your doors open and continue your reevaluating your vision, understanding the long-term goals to get you from 2 to 3 years to 10 to 15 years.
Well, let's jump to a subject, sexual harassment, which is one of the reasons we asked you. What are you telling your clients, or what are your clients asking you about that, and how do you help them deal with it?
I think it's important to note that sexual harassment is not necessarily a new issue. It has always been around, and prudent behavior in the workplace is a must. Business is business, and you focus on your business, and you make sure that your actions, your language, your emails, your communications are appropriate, regardless of the gender of your coworkers. But it's very important to treat everybody with respect. That's what we do here, and that's clearly what we promote for our clients.
Well, that's good advice. We're talking with Mike Savage. He's the CEO and founder of 1-800-Accounting. Mike, your website again and how people can reach you?
1-800-Accountant is our phone number, and our website is 1-800-Accountant.com.
Oh, that's a great number. I'm going to ask you, how did you come up with that one?
Well, we came up with our name, and when we established ourselves as a virtual accounting firm, we always say that we have technology, but more importantly, we have humans, we have accountants, and what better way to communicate with your accountant than by phone if it's virtual. So we really emphasize a human touch and that client satisfaction and client service first and foremost, and we do that primarily using the tool of the telephone.
Well, telephone's a great tool. People seem to think that the telephone has gone out of style. I don't happen to think that. What do you think about telephone and how to effectively use it?
It still is the most effective way of communication. It's quick and precise, and even with technology and the advent of the smartphone and apps, makes us, in my opinion, even more reliant on the telephone. We, 1-800 Accountant, we have we're also, considered an app, and we have a client portal and a platform for our clients to communicate with us if they would rather through our app, and in some cases it's even more secure than emails or hard copy documents. So not only is the telephone an old tool, it's also a new tool.
Well, that's good advice. Another question I have is, over the last year where the economy has picked up, what have you seen as some of the issues that small businesses have run across that you think will affect them over the next couple of years?
Well, I think that something that is happening to businesses across the country is the fact that it's hard to hire people. Everyone's got a job. Anyone who's looking for a job, there are more jobs available than people who are looking for jobs. So the job market has tightened, and it's difficult. It's always been difficult to hire good people. Now it's difficult just to hire people. So that is one thing, that we're seeing over this new economy. But people are buying too, so sales should go up, and maybe the reliance on technology is more important than ever, as finding help and employees has become more difficult.
Well, good thoughts. Well, I guess the next question I ask: are your clients bringing any new issues to your group that you hadn't seen before?
Well, with the new tax law that went into effect this year, there are lots of questions, and the new tax law is so far-reaching and encompassing that that literally every industry is materially affected by the changes. Often, in form of more deductions and lower rates, but also in the elimination of deductions that have traditionally been used or have been accessible. So the vast majority of the questions that we're getting in today's new economy surround, are having to do with the new tax law.
Oh, agreed. Well, let me jump to one that was brought up to me over the weekend, which is, are people buying more real property today because of the tax law?
Yes, there are favorable depreciation rules now that allow business owners to depreciate faster, equipment and other property. So that is we've certainly seen an uptick in investment in property.
Well, also healthcare, which was always a big issue. How are your clients financing healthcare?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think that we will see, in the near future, some health care reform that hopefully specializes, or that benefits a small business. A lot of the health care now, it's great benefits for large corporations, but the small individual corporations or small business owners, they don't get the same benefits of the collective bargaining or the larger bargaining of that larger corporations have. And so hopefully in the near future, and there's been a lot of talk about this, that there will be that small businesses will have the same, access to discounted health care that large corporations have. But right now it's clearly a problem.
Yeah, so it's ironic. People thought it was solved, but based on our surveys, that it still seems to be an issue that a lot of small business people, at least wise in our surveys, seem to indicate. We have just a few minutes left. In your own business, what have you learned over the last few years that two or three things that you'd like to pass on to small business leaders?
I think from my personal experience, what I've learned over the past few years is the importance of good old-fashioned hard work. In the face of adversity and hard times, hard work has been a proven effective solution to tough times. Hard work, treating people well, whether it's your employees or your clients, and just like I was saying earlier, keeping the doors open. You never know when something good's going to happen, and those that work hard keep a good attitude tend to have better opportunities. Opportunities will come with, in my opinion, for those that have good attitudes, keep the doors open, and treat people well.
I couldn't agree with you more on that point. I always remember a mentor of mine many years ago saying that in a year you never know what will happen, so make sure you survive the year. And he was right.
Right.
Well, what's the future for you? How do you see your company growing?
Well, we are growing quickly. We're expanding and hiring more people and acquiring more clients. And what we're really trying to do is bring world-class accounting service to the small business owner, where we have very affordable pricing and phenomenal technology, super smart and nice accountants. And as the tax law changes, people have questions, and we're here for them. And our growth is growing with the entrepreneur. When our clients' businesses grow, we grow along with them. So their success is paramount to our success.
I have one more question, which just came across my desk. Last year was the first year that more women started companies than men. Are you seeing that as a trend?
I'm seeing that what I'm saying is that a lot of new businesses are being formed by a very diverse crowd, and women historically or recently have been starting more businesses, as with minorities as well, and younger people more than ever have been starting businesses. Now, there's a lot of talk about the millennial generation, and the millennial generation, in my opinion, from what I've seen in my experience, are starting a lot of businesses, are very creative, and I think are going to be very successful.
Mike Savage, thank you so much for being with us. Your website again for our audience?
It's 1-800-accountant.com.
Thank you so much. A link to that website will be on recalculating.biz tonight, where you can hear this and every other future program. And we thank you, Mike, for joining us. It's been a very illuminating time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Dan Perkins here from recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day. How is your vision? I'm not talking about your eyesight, but rather, can you see the changes coming in your business or industry? The ability to see what's coming can give you an edge over your competition. Industry magazines can be a great help to see changes coming to your business. You get the magazines because you belong to a group. Use the resource of your group or association to keep yourself current. You're paying for it anyway, why not use this resource? If you keep yourself abreast of what's happening, you will be able to make the changes to enhance your opportunity to grow your business. So here's your recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. The next time you get one of those membership magazines in the mail, sit down and read it cover to cover. You just might uncover a new opportunity. I'm Dan Perkins from recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day.
Tell me, Dan, tell me about your latest book.
My current book that's coming out, I should say, is Why Can't Grammy Remember Me? And it's really the first book written for children between the ages of 9 and 12 and their families dealing with dementia. Dementia is a growing problem with the elderly in the United States and around the world. And we are not very well informed about what's going on, what's happening. So I wrote this book in the form of a mystery. And I have two little girls, 9 and 12, who have a magical power to seem to be able to find things that are lost. And so they go to their dads and moms and they say, we work all over the neighborhood helping people find things, and we seem to find things. And their dad says, yes, you have a magical talent to do that. And they said, we'd like to start a business to see if we can help other people. So they decided to start a business. The two girls' names are Hudson and Charlotte, and they start H&C's Lost and Found. If you've lost it, we find it. And so they build a business, and they convince the dads to build them an office and a treehouse in the backyard. And they get busy making posters and flyers trying to get customers. And their dads take them downtown, and they put them in the windows and on the telephone poles and light poles. And they go home, and first week goes by, and nobody comes. And the second week and third week, and nobody comes. They're really, really dejected. And the fourth week comes, and there's a knock at the door, and they walk over and open the door, and there's a young man standing there with one of their flyers in his hands. And he says to them, my dad says the reason why my Grammy can't remember me is because she's lost her memory. And your flyer says you find things that are lost. Can you find my Grammy's memory? Well, they don't know anything about memory, so they take his name and they go see their dads to see what can happen. And the story evolves into how they learn about what dementia is and what's going on in the body when somebody has dementia. And then they decide, while they can't find their customer's memory, they can help him build the tools to retain her in his memory. And so at the end of the book, there are about 10 to 12, 13 things that families can do together to work on to preserve the memory of Grandma and Grandpa, so the generations can know who these people were. And that's the story.
What a great book. When will it be available, and how can people get it?
Well, it'll be available on Amazon.com. A lot of people who have read it, who've had moms and dads that have been stricken with Alzheimer's or dementia, tell me that they really now begin to understand what's happening in Grandma's brain. And we took a different approach. Rather than do the typical brain cross-section, I work with the artist, and we design highways in the brain. And there's a brain of one of the little girls and the brain of Grammy. They both have highways, roads, but the girl's brain, everything is green and go. Grammy's brain is full of no left turns, do not enter, stop, no right turns. So all of the messages that need to come from our brain get screwed up, and we can't function. Great illustrations, though. Wonderful illustrations.
Well, say goodbye, Dan.
All right.
Time for us to go.
Thank you for joining us. And by the way, if you didn't hear all of today's show, you can go to recalculating.biz, and you can pick up this show and past shows to expand your knowledge as becoming more successful entrepreneurs. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Dan's tip of the day should resonate with every small business. Having a bright, clear physical plan always adds profits. One recent survey revealed 71% of walkers responded that they would enter a newly refurbished establishment even if they didn't have anything to buy or were in the market for buy. So how important is it with small business for physical establishments where customers come in to buy? It's very important. Sprucing up a small business makes sense. Saving cents may cost a small business dollars if the right quality paint is not used. According to Hotel Association figures, the average time between major spruce-ups for member hotels, dropped from 8 to 7 years in the past 12 months. Why? Because new establishments are very important. But don't think these statistics apply only to brick-and-mortar stores. The entry page for any business is that company's storefront. For those online leaders who think they are immune to the need for change to their storefronts, think again. While changing index pages initially loses visitors, new visitors are usually generated within 3 months. So today's message
in a physical plant or online. Stay new. It will help profits.
Thank you for joining us on Recalculating. We hope the information you received on today's episode was helpful to you in starting and growing your business. Please go to our website, recalculating.biz, to contact us, to listen to past shows, and see special offers. Until next time, remember, if you grow, we grow. Join us next week for more helpful ideas to make your business a great success. Recalculating, a program designed to help you be successful.